Welcome to MilCert Minutes. I'm Nick. Today I will be discussing how to go about filing a Freedom of Information Act request on military surplus firearms. So first off, why would you want to file a FOIA request on a gun? Well, in the case of this and a handful of other types of U.S. military service weapons, you may be able to find a interesting and detailed history of who used it, where it went, and other information like that, whether it was given as military aid or used by a certain branch. This does specifically only pertain to firearms that were in U.S. inventory after 1976. That being said, there are many guns that were out of service by 1976 that were still in inventory then. So 1903s, 1917s, M1911 A1 and in this case 1911s that weren't officially phased out until the 1980s with the introduction of the M9 pistol. One safe bet to know that you have a gun that did not leave inventory until after 76 are firearms that were acquired through the Civilian Marksmanship Program or its predecessor, the DCM. For those who don't know what the Civilian Marksmanship Program is, it is a federally chartered 501c3 organization that promotes marksmanship, training, and competition. In addition to this, the organization facilitates the sale of U.S. military weapons and parts. As I said previously, they did have M1 carbines, 1903s, 1917s, and even some of the 22 trainers that were used from World War II and onward. Nowadays, you really will only ever see M1 Garands commonly. They do 1911s by a special type of mail order only, and if you go to the store in person, you may possibly see 1903s, and then if you're really lucky, 1917s, but they're very uncommonly available nowadays. This video is not going to cover how to go about buying firearms through the CMP. I may do that in the future if people really want to see me talk about how to buy guns through the CMP, but it's looks like a difficult process, but isn't really that tough. So let's jump right into talking about how to file a FOIA request. The first thing you're going to do is send an email to usarmy.redstone.ldac.mbx.foia@army.mil, and it should be somewhere up here. It'll also be, I will have the email as well as a template for a request email in the description of this video if you want to copy that down in a little bit easier way. But in my case, I sent the message with a subject line, Freedom of Information Act, M1911 A1, and the following message body that you can see here, and pause here and look at it and take it down, but as I said, it'll be in the description. One thing that's very important, and if you do not include it in the email, it will immediately get ignored, is the mention of willingness to pay $25. Now, in all of the examples I've read of before, nobody has ever had to pay for a FOIA request. It's just it's more of a formality. The information that they have, or the history on the guns that they'll be getting for you, doesn't really take that long for them to find. But then after you do that, you wait. In my case, I waited 10 days. I've heard sometimes it takes a couple of months. I would say after maybe 2 weeks, send a second email. Maybe it fell through the cracks. And then again, maybe in a month after that. But we're going to take a look at what came back on my request and give you an idea as to what you might find on yours if you file one too. Okay, so you've sent off your email and they've responded to you. Now let's take a look at what you got back. One thing to know is that sometimes you just might not get anything back, even if you bought it through the CMP. At the same time I bought this pistol, I sent off the FOIA request for my M1 Garands, and one of them came back with absolutely nothing. It came in a batch with another rifle that I had a very detailed history on. So it still can be kind of hit or miss. It is what it is. But as I said, this was a pistol. It's a Remington Rand. It's a 1945 dated frame, and it was made in 1945, and it doesn't show up in the records until 2010, where it says it was transferred from Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane, Indiana, back to the Army in 2010. I may try to reach out to Crane at some point and see if they can give me a more in-depth history on the pistol. Maybe it ended up on some ships. Maybe it was in the hands of the Marine Corps at one point. I don't really know. But that also is outside of the purview of this video. I may just release it later as an addendum once I get some answers on it. But I understand that going through the process with the Navy is much more arduous and less streamlined. From here you can see it was looked at a handful of times between 2011 and 2020 before being released 2 times on June 5th, 2020. I would later purchase this pistol a year later in June of 2021. But the big thing that was the takeaway that I thought was really neat about this was I have a 1911 that was 100% in U.S. Navy service at one point. I have heard anecdotes about 1911s being in service with and being on board Navy ships long after the M9 was adopted, well into the 1990s and even the 2000s. And I just think it's kind of cool to think about this pistol that originally entered U.S. military service in 1911, and this one that entered service in 1945, soldiered on well into the 1990s and possibly the 2010s in this case. Beyond just the rare circumstances of U.S. Army Special Operations using these pistols, but that's a different topic entirely to discuss. I hope you found something informative. I hope you got something out of this and maybe can go and file a FOIA request on your guns that you got through the CMP or just military surplus firearms in general. If you do, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to read what you get back. I've heard some interesting stories. I've heard there's an M1 Garand or a couple of them that came back from Iraq and got put back into circulation in the CMP, so who knows. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video.